Everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. The title says it all. Inside the Pigskin 2022 season. That's a wrap. However, we will be coming on a couple times a month with the updates with free agency, the draft, and so forth. So we're not going away. We're just downscaling it. So our final crew of the year will start to my right. Candy, welcome back.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you for having me.
And Travis, the big new addition to our crew, has been nothing short of outstanding. Welcome back, Mr. Travis.
Thank you for having me post Super Bowl Sunday.
You got it. Smoking Jeremy B did a doubleheader tonight. We talked about the Daytona 500. We get to go ahead and talk about some football, right, Smoking?
Yes, I love football. That's my forte.
Yeah, I know. But you're pretty good with auto racing. And last but not least, my running back, Mel Farr. Welcome back, Mel.
Hey, great to be back.
Well, I'm wearing this auto racing hat because over the weekend, Candy Ebling and I are going to be covering the Daytona 500. This is a Rolex 24. I'm sure I'll probably get maybe one or two more hats up there, but hopefully they won't be too expensive. But before we do that, let's get around to business. Have a very factual broadcast tonight, and I'll get right to the numbers, okay? First of all, we're going to start with you on this one, Candy. Give me some observations of what you saw with the Kansas City Chiefs 38-35 win.
Well, let's see. I thought it was a good, hard-fought game. Is there controversial calls? Holding is holding. And yes, it's not always called. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. We can all argue that, should have been called, should have not. But when the player actually says after the fact that he was holding, it's a call. I didn't see all of the game, I'll be honest. I was a little preoccupied, but by the score, it was close. I said it was going to be a 3-point game at the end. Yes, I said I thought Philly was going to win in the end, but Philly had a costly error, and Jalen Hurts, I saw that play, and Jalen Hurts fumbling that ball cost them that game. And obviously, it wasn't just one play. They play a whole game, but that was very costly for Philly.
Turn over to Travis.
I understand why Bradbury stated that he did hold, because if you're talking about the way that the rules are written, yes. I mean, if you're going by the letter of the law, yes, it was holding. And the whole team had that same understanding. It almost felt like they were all, disgusted before the game, and to make sure that there was no, after game complaints on the ref or any of these one plays. I get it. I understand why they have to do it. As a competitor, you want to make sure whatever's in your hands and you have, however many plays to change the flow of the game. I understand all of it. However, the way that the game went, the way that the refs called the game, the players normally, you ask most players, they'll tell you, you adjust by how the game's being called. You play how the game's being called. So if you're a cornerback and you see that the refs aren't calling it, you're going to play more aggressively. I mean, Scott, Candy, we had a game similar to this when the Jaguars played against the Chiefs in the opening week. We were all in the press box complaining about how the refs would not call pass interference. And my immediate response to everybody in the press room at that time was, the receivers they're going to have to learn to find a way to get past this bumper run. They have to beat the refs. If the refs aren't going to call it, awesome. At least we know now in the first quarter that the refs aren't going to call it. That's exactly what happened in this game. The only difference is the refs started calling it after 2 minutes remaining in the game. And the same thing happened last Super Bowl when we all just forgot it. They literally called 0 holds and 0 pass interferences until less than 2 minutes in the game. And then they called the first one of the game, and it was also a suspect call. Same thing happened this year. That's my only issue within the game.
It's not a suspect call when the player who committed the penalty admits he did the penalty right after the game.
Well, that's the interesting part about it. There holes every game. The argument isn't whether or not it was a hold.
That defensive holding isn't called all the time, though.
So
and I agree.
The issue isn't whether or not he did hold. The issue is how many times throughout the game has that happened, and how many times did the refs not call it, so the players get accustomed to
I saw
this
both
is how
teams
they're
get
calling
called
it
for
today.
it 3 times. I saw both teams get called for it 3 times throughout their game.
Defensive holding? No, that didn't happen in this game at all. You can look it up. Trust me, I already have. They didn't call it until a minute and 40 something in the game. He admitted he held, but the players adjust to how it's being called. So by the letter of the law, of course, absolutely it's a penalty. Unfortunately, that's not how they were calling it. And it almost feels like it was purposeful when the only time they call it is less than 2 minutes remaining. That's my biggest issue with the game. That's not the overall game. These players deserve the credit that, hey, man, they played a wonderful game. And this was 2 really close teams, just like we all thought going into the game. And it stinks that it came down to something that is even remotely controversial because they deserve so much more. We deserve to find out who gets that ball last and how do they end it.
Anything else you want to add to that, Jeremy, before I turn over to Mel?
I just say when the player goes, yeah, I committed the penalty and it should have been called and it was, that should be the end of it. I that's just the way I feel. You know what? Nobody took back about the blatant picked up when the Dallas versus Detroit. They picked up the flag. There is no flag. They say there's no flag on the play. That was the first time in NFL history I heard a ref say there is no flag for pass interference on the play. They didn't call a penalty yet. So how did anybody know it was pass interference yet? They admitted that was what was going to be called.
All right, we'll turn over to Mel.
Well, I mean, I thought it was a good game. It was a close game. Close games are, obviously they get eyeballs. People are more likely to stay tuned and watch the game. You talk about that play at the end of the game. It really never should have came down to that. And Candy, you talked about Jalen fumbling, but you got to remember the play before that. It was, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, whatever it was at that particular time. And the right tackle or right guard.
The misprotection.
So that play doesn't even happen. That play doesn't happen if, that offensive lineman is able to hold his water when they're in that short yardage situation. And at that particular point, if Philly would have went on to score, the game would have been probably out of reach at that particular time because really neither team could stop one another. I think Philadelphia ended up punting maybe twice during the game, but they would go for it. They're in the right part of the field. They were going for it on 4th down, and they couldn't stop that. Kansas City couldn't stop their 4th down play, their 4th and short play. So, it really shouldn't have come down to the interference call or the holding call at the end, nor the fumble. I mean, you can't really blame Jalen. I mean, he was trying to make a play, the ball that slipped out of his hand. And it was unfortunate because, they were not able to stop Kansas City. That was the biggest problem. And I was talking to a friend of mine, we were going back and forth during the game. Whoever has the ball last is going to win. That's what I was saying, because neither one of the teams could stop the other team, especially you got to consider the amount of time that defense was out there on the field. Kansas City's defense was out there on the field. I'm pretty sure they're getting tired of getting leaned on. They're getting leaned on all night. So you'd have to think that fatigue would come into play. So, offensively, you look at some of the things that Kansas City did on the offensive side to take advantage of some things that they saw on film on those 2 touchdown passes where they faked the jet motion going across the field, and they came right back. Look, the DBs were bumping that off, and when the DB bumped it off, and the wide receiver came back to that side of the field. There was nobody there. I mean, the guys were wide open on both of those plays. They just ran the same play, just had the opposite formation on both of those plays. So coaching also, you can see that one guy's been coaching in the league for a very, very long time, and another guy has been a head coach in the league for 2 years. So Philadelphia was out coached, and then unfortunately, they had that one turnover that was very costly turnover as well.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add to it, because everybody's made some outstanding points, that when Jalen Hurts fumbled, there's your 7 points. The game's decided by 3. So, I mean,
Yep.
I realize the way I look at a lot of these games, the way they turn out.
Well, you have to think about it. It's really a 14-point swing there because Kansas City went on to score. So that's a 14-point swing there.
Yeah, excellent point. So you fumble, they score, and I may not be great at math, okay, but I can tell you right now that a 14-point swing. But yeah, Candy, I think you really more or less nailed it. You really do. And you know what? I believe Jalen Hurts will win a Super Bowl. This kid's just a great player, and you hated to see either
He
of
made
them
some great
lose.
throws. I mean, he made 2 throws that were just unbelievable.
That third down to Goddard
Yeah,
and against cover 2, that was amazing.
the one on the sideline, that
Mm-hmm.
just over the underneath this defender and just in front of the defender that was behind. That was an unbelievable throw. And even the throw he made, I believe it was the Goddard too, but it was in the flat. It was still an excellent throw. I mean, he made a couple throws that, if they're just off by just a little bit, they're going the other way.
Oh,
Yeah.
and PS, Doug Peterson with the assist on that play, the motion play that they scored the 2 touchdowns on. They said after the game that Eric Bieniemy had the Jaguars play when against the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 4, and he showed it to the rest of the team on Friday before the game, showed it when Jamal Agnew scored a touchdown on the exact play that Kansas City scored those 2 touchdowns on, and he told him, if we do this, we're going to basically score, and they scored 2 touchdowns on it, so that they get the assist from Doug Peterson for showing them that Philadelphia can't stop this. They're not passing it off correctly on the defensive side, so thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, Will Vogel's on a roll, making a lot of interesting points, and believe it or not, I actually have some of these, so bear with me. We're going to go ahead and mention a couple of them, but I should point out that Inside the Pigskin can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. So also, please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're striving for 1,000 subscribers, and also please like and share the broadcast as well, so that your friends can hear about it as well. So good stuff here. All right, so on to the next topic. The NFC now leads in Super Bowls 29-28. All right, we'll go ahead with you, Travis.
I don't generally hold those types of stats with high regard. Like it's cool, but at the end of the day, we kind of know what this is. That NFL is coming down to quarterbacks. Which side is going to have, and I can't even say the best quarterbacks, but if you have the most of those top tier quarterbacks, you're going to have more bites at the apple, right? Like that's really at the end of the day how it's going to happen, because you're going to get that random, I don't know, Joe Flacco Super Bowl, or the random quarterback that's just going to make the numbers sway a little bit. But when you have a Pat Mahomes that's got 2 of the last 4 on one side, it's kind of a cheat code. Or if you have Tom Brady on the other side, that's 7 Super Bowls in, what was it, 20 years? That's sort of going to swing the numbers no matter just wherever they are. So if you have I can't even say Aaron Rodgers, because he hasn't had any, but nevertheless, you kind of get my point. It's just
Hey,
really,
listen,
yeah,
Travis,
which one has the most?
I like throwing stats out there. I know that you're right. I mean, one quarterback has 7 of these things, and 6 of them in one. So I'm with you. But a stat is a stat. It's always worth talking
yeah.
about. All right,
absolutely.
Jeremy.
Pat Mahomes winning 2 out of 3 out of his 4 years as a starter, right?
Right.
You got to put him in the baby goat status.
Boy, he's a baby goat.
Baby goat.
Well, think about it. Madden 22, the commercial they did for the introduction, had Tom Brady and Pat Mahomes sitting there, and at the end, when they showed that barn they were sitting in front of, there was a full-grown goat and a baby goat, which is a kid.
All right. Well, I don't know if I can top that, so I'll let Mel take a crack at it.
Now you said who leads it?
Right now, the NFC leads in Super Bowls 29-28, the overall record between the 2 conferences.
Yeah, I mean, I don't put much weight into that. A lot of it has to do with timing and like you guys said, I mean, Tom Brady, he takes up a big chunk of that for the AFC.
Right.
Peyton Manning's got a couple in the AFC. Joe Montana's got quite a few on the NFC side. So, it just depends. You got to be in the right situation and in the right program, and obviously, the situation that Pat Mahomes is in right now is a great situation. Obviously he's an extremely talented player, and he's playing with an offensive-minded coach who's extremely creative, and they do a very good job in selecting players. This guy Pacheco they got, I think he's in the 7th round or whatever out of Rutgers. I never heard of the guy. But, man, the guy can just flat out ball. And Andy Reid finds those kind of guys more than anybody. And not only does he find them, he finds ways to use them. The guy that ran the punt back, was it Tony? I mean, they got him in a trade from the Jets. He was
The Giants.
with his playing time with the Jets, and they traded for him and got that's a huge play in that game there. That punt at the end, that's a huge play because that set him up for that go ahead field goal at the end. So I mean, you talk about different plays. Had they not given up that big punt return and special teams, things could have turned out differently. Maybe time would have ran out and they could have got to overtime. But because of that great punt return from a guy that they that didn't start this year on their team, they had an opportunity to ice the game out, not allow Philadelphia to get the ball back with any reasonable time on the clock and win the football game.
Yeah, there's no question that Tony was a good pickup for the Giants. All right, Candy.
Well, let's expand a little bit on that, and let's talk about the NFC East has been the most successful division in the NFL, grabbing 21 NFC championships and 13 Super Bowl victories. It is the only division where every team has at least one Lombardi trophy.
Okay. Well, good. Now that we're in the business of expanding, I'm going to hit you with another stat. Super Bowl losses by a franchise. I'll probably get a little hate mail from a few of these, but I'm going to list them anyways. I think these numbers are interesting and they're worth, since this is a season wrap up, I think they're appropriate. So we'll start off with Denver and New England have 5. Buffalo and Minnesota have 4. Dallas, Cincinnati, the Rams, the Dolphins, and Philadelphia have 3. San Francisco, Las Vegas, Indianapolis, Carolina, Seattle, Washington, Atlanta, KC, and Pittsburgh have 2. And Tennessee, the Giants, the LA Chargers, Chicago Bears, Arizona, and Green Bay have 1. All right, Mel, what are your thoughts about those stats?
The good thing is they got there. That's the thing about the stats is at least they've gotten there and they've had an opportunity to experience the Super Bowl, win,
Right.
lose, or draw. Us lowly Detroit fans, we haven't even had a chance. We haven't even sniffed one of those. We'd gladly be on that list because that means we got there. We would gladly be on there, whether it's once, twice, 4 times, whatever. I mean, Buffalo lost 4 times in a row, but they got there. I think Minnesota's lost 4 times, but guess what? They got there.
Yeah.
So that's I don't hold anything against those guys for getting there. Now some of them lost, and some of them lost some games and have won. There are some teams that have lost and have not won on that list that you mentioned that have gone multiple times, not just lost one, but have gone multiple times.
Minnesota and Buffalo.
Lost. Right. Minnesota and Buffalo have gone multiple times, lost, and have not won. But I take getting there. That's the whole thing. I mean, you want to get there, have an opportunity. I don't hold anything against those guys. I don't begrudge them at all. As a Detroit fan, I'm a little envious.
Hello,
Hell, I agree with you, Mel. I'm even envious of the Bills because they got there 4 times.
Right.
In a row.
Yeah, exactly.
Under Jim Kelly. Hello, Ralph Williams. Thanks for being a regular on the show. We appreciate it. So, yeah, I'm with you, Jeremy. Getting there is the main thing. There's only 4 teams that haven't been there: the Browns, the Jaguars, the Lions, and the Texans. So we'll go there. So anything you want to add to it, Jeremy?
Those are all expansion teams except for one.
Yeah, and only one of those is an original one. But to their credit, I love when somebody says, well, y'all don't have any rings. I was like, you guys are idiots. The ring ceremony started in 1930.
That's true.
We have a ring, but we don't have a Super Bowl.
Right.
Yeah,
we have 4 rings.
The Lions' last championship was on my birthday, December 29, 1957, but I wasn't born yet. So, yeah, but at least it's sometimes in life you do go out there, remember things by dates. And when my birthday comes into play, then, I might as well bring it up when I talk to my coworkers. All right, Travis, does this stat mean anything?
I mean, I sort of agree with majority of the group overall with, hey man, you can't win a championship unless you can get there. Everyone's not going to be Jordan. Everyone's not, not going to get the 6 championships, or Tom, even for that matter. Even Tom lost a few, right? So you can't win a championship without playing in one. I mean, sometimes you get unfortunate, you're just super unlucky, like the Buffalo Bills or, Minnesota, and you just lose all 4 of them. But eventually you go to the championship enough times, you're going to win one. You're going to have that right matchup, whatever it takes. But again, you have teams like Patriots who've lost 5, but they've also won. 7, 6, something along those lines. So so that's when it goes well. But at the end of the day, overall, you can't really hold it against them. They made it to the championship, 4, 5, 6, whatever the number of times, and eventually, that coin's going to flip heads. But good jobs. Unfortunate, guys have to live with those 1 or 2 plays that could have changed, the fortunes for one of these franchises.
All right, Candy.
Like Mel said, it's an accomplishment just getting to the game. They play only how many games in this season, the chance to win. Let's face it, you have to be healthy and playing hot at the right time of the year near the end to get there and to keep riding that wave to the Super Bowl and then winning the Super Bowl. And so that's tough because you've played a grueling season. Everybody comments about how they're laughing, how people want to take time now to make decisions if they're going to come back, if they're not going to come back, if they're going to retire. Well, they're mentally and physically exhausted. At this point in the season, to win a Super Bowl isn't easy. I mean, yes, it's not the 7-game series like a Stanley Cup, but football is very physical. It's very brutal. It's hard on your body. It's hard mentally. I give the ones that win a lot of credit. And the ones that haven't, some of them are just a play or 2 away, or maybe a bad call on a game that, we all talk about bad calls, whether they're good or, whether we agree with them or not. But a lot of times they can affect players mentally as well. And that can affect the rest of the game.
So
you lose on a last-minute field goal that's wide right or left or whatever it was. That's a tough way to lose.
That is. Yes, I agree.
Candy falls into the category GMTA. She's been around me forever, anyways. Great minds think alike. So I'll move the show along with that, and we'll move it along here. All right. Well, you know what? Here's a name you probably never expected to hear tonight. But Chad Henne retires with more rings than Aaron Rodgers, Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, and Phillip Rivers. And he actually had a combined 2. Chad Henne, can you believe that? All right, we'll start off with you, Mel.
Who?
For him. He did make. He got in.
This season,
he got in that 1 week when Mahomes got hurt and took him on a 90 some odd yard drive.
98 yards.
So he earned it. And I'm not mad at him. Hey, look here. I wouldn't mind having one, just being a role player or just
Pine Rider
team. I wouldn't mind. Yeah, bench warmer. I wouldn't mind. Hell,
hey, you want to hear something sad?
If I was the equipment guy, I wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter to me. I got a ring.
Tease Tabor, former Lion, has an NFC Championship ring.
Was he really?
With the San Francisco 49ers, along with Anthony Zettel.
Well, okay. Let's
on the practice squad. They get their rings. I'm just saying.
He went out on the high. You can't. He had a great career. He did start some games. He found his. You can make a great career being a backup quarterback. I mean, that's the best job to have. You make good money. Your body doesn't get beat. You just got to be ready when called on, and you have to be kind of a stopgap for 2 to 4 games. And for Chad Henne, it was 1 series this year, and it was important. And he did what he was supposed to do. He went out there, took command of the offense, drove him down the length of the field, and once the game was over, he packed his stuff and headed on to the house. I'm not upset with him at all.
Yeah, well, Chad Henney's been steady all along. So I think a lot of teams devalue the backup quarterback, and in a case like this, Chad Henney was able to get a.
Everybody devalues them until you need them.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So,
Mm.
all right, Travis, Chad Henney, did you ever hear of him before?
Oh yeah, right.
I'm kidding with
I'm a
you.
Jags fan. You know I know who Chad Henne
Yeah,
is.
I'm kidding with you.
Yeah, that man's the reason I got gray hairs in my chin, man. But yes, Chad, he did what he needed to do. He had his opportunities, in the past at the Jaguar starting quarterback, and he's not that guy, but absolutely as a backup quarterback, legend at the bank. Hey man, collect those $3 million paychecks, and hold that clipboard, and have this 1 or 2 drives. Hopefully, they don't have to depend on you for 4 and 5 weeks. He did exactly what they signed him for. They signed him to that 1 year, what was it, $2 million contract, and he had like $1 million in incentives. Hey, that one drive, that 98-yard drive against the Jaguars to keep them, ahead in that game and end up winning the game. Hey, he earned that paycheck, and that's exactly what you want out of your backup quarterback. You don't want to hear from him all season, and if you need him for a drive or two, or for a game, there you go. He did what he had to do. It's very unfortunate that he again, put the knife through us fans' hearts. But hey, he got his ring out of it. So congratulations, young man.
Yeah, well, it seems like we have a little pattern of Michigan Wolverines quarterbacks winning between Tom Brady and Chad Henne. So, we'll turn it over to Candy.
60 touchdowns, 13,290 yards, 2 Super Bowl rings. Kudos to him. Like Mel said, the backup quarterback, best job in the NFL to have. You don't get hit that much and you get paid. When you're called upon, yes, you got to step in. So you got to know all the plays. You got to be familiar with everything. But hey, I'd be a backup quarterback if I could.
Yeah, he's done
It's,
well. All right.
especially retiring though. Like he became a backup quarterback in the last 4 years and got 2 rings as a backup quarterback. That's wow. Like that's rolling all sevens right there.
Well, you know what? Now we got to go to Will Vogel's top topic because he more or less let the cat out of the bag. So, according to Ari Miroff, every coach's cycle spent time with the Philadelphia Eagles at some point. Jonathan Gannon was a defensive coordinator from 21 to 22. He's now with the Cardinals. Now we go to Shane Steichen, offensive coordinator 21 22 with the Colts. Frank Reich, offensive coordinator 2016-21, now with the Carolina Panthers. D'Amico Ryan, linebacker 2012-2015, who's now coaching the Texans. And Sean Payton, believe it or not, was a quarterback's coach from 1997-98. So there you go, Will. I know that you talked about it earlier. Feel free to chime in now, Mr. Vogel, because, this was one that was, I've never seen anything with a coaching cycle where all 5 actually have ties to another team. And amazingly enough, when you look at the case of the Eagles, they lost their defensive coordinator and their offensive coordinator, I believe, for the first time since 1994 that this has happened. If I did my research right, and now those 2 guys are going to have pretty big jobs between the Colts and the Cardinals. All right, well, I'll lead it off with you.
Oh, you're gonna lead off with me about that?
Yeah.
About the hires?
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised, to be honest with you. Those names kind of came out of nowhere. I'll say that for my parting shot. But hey, it's exciting. It's exciting opportunity for these 2 young men to get an opportunity to see if they have what it takes to be a professional head football coach, to run a program, and that's what most of these guys aspire to be. When you move up the ranks and you become an offensive coordinator or play caller and defensive coordinator, the next step is you want to have the opportunity to run your own show. So, it's an exciting opportunity for these guys. We had a hiring cycle here. What was that? 5 coaches? Was it 5 positions that needed to be filled? And out of the 5, we got 1 African American candidate that filled that spot. But like I said, I'm gonna save it for my parting shot.
All right. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add a little to this, and then everybody can do it. Do you think Brian Flores and Steve Wilkes will ever get hired as a head coaching job? No.
I think so. I mean, he got the DC job up there in Minnesota. I think so. I think he's thought of very highly in amongst the owners. It seems for him to even get an opportunity to have some interviews, that speaks volumes about the type of individual that he is. He wasn't wrong about Tua. He wasn't wrong about it. There was a conflict between him and management regarding the quarterback. He didn't feel he could win with that quarterback. Mike McDaniels has come down there. He's done a good job, but still, there's still issues with that quarterback, whether or not he's going to be durable enough to be the guy there. I mean, when he's on the field, he seems to be the guy. But the problem is, can he stay on the field? That's the problem. I think Flores had some different problems with him. He just didn't believe in him. Period. I'm not much of a Tua fan, but he has some talent. Offense moved when he was out there, and he was able to make some plays, but he's just not durable.
Yeah, Jeremy.
We were talking about the offensive and defensive coordinators that left.
Well, we're just talking about the 5 hires that went through the Eagles is what we're talking about.
Oh, okay. I think they all went to where they probably should do, but I'm thinking that that's going to hurt the Eagles as well as how many free agents they have this year. Right. You got to give the bag to Hurts now because he proved he's worth it. So that being said, you do that, then you start having less money for other positions, as we've seen, unless he does one of those smart long-term contracts like what Mahomes did. They kicked most of that contract to the back end with removable years. So they can restructure that, or if his play starts to diminish, they can get rid of him at that point. So if they do something similar, nowhere near like 10 years, but let's say they do a 6-year contract where it starts out where it's very cap friendly, and then the last couple of years are voidable.
Yeah, but even with
they can do more.
Those voidable years are just for proration of signing bonus. Mm-hmm. Even when you void those years, then it accelerates that signing bonus. So I mean, you're gonna pay the piper at some point in time.
Exactly. You're
gonna pay me now, or you're gonna pay me later, or you're gonna pay me over time. But I'm gonna get paid one way or the other. That you're gonna take that hit at some point in time.
Okay, Jeremy, quick question. Brian Flores, Steve Wilkes, so they both get head coaching jobs. Before I do that, Will Vogel thinks Flores will get a job, and I do too.
I think they both will. I mean, they both proved they are good coaches. Look at what Wilkes did with the Panthers. I mean, he deserved to get a coaching shot this year. But again, I talked about this last week, and I'll say it again. The old white money don't want to come off it.
Okay, we'll turn over to Travis. You know the question by now. 5 hires in this cycle all came from the Eagles. What do you think?
It kind of goes back to what we were saying. What was it last week when our conversation talking about normally the hiring cycle generally goes whatever the hot team, whoever the young thing, whether it's the new young thing who's lighting the NFL on fire. That's who's being hired. That's who's being sought after. Whether it's hiring all the coaches from the LA Rams, or now it's the Philadelphia Eagles, and there's going to be 2 ways of looking at this. One, from the Eagles' perspective, hey, what is that team going to look like? How good of a coach is Sirianni? Like you're going to find out real quickly because there's going to be some significant changes. And yeah, he impacted the culture, but how much as far as the X's and O's was that his imprint? Because you're going to have 5 new guys coming in and trying to put their, at least 2 of them putting their own imprint on what this team's going to look like. That's going to be an interesting thing because you have Gannon, who coached the number 2 defense in the NFL, and I believe they led the NFL in sacks, right? So we're up there. That's some big shoes to fill for this new defensive coordinator. Now the OC, I will say that was a surprise to me also, Mel. I know you said that earlier. But he went to Indianapolis, so I can't really say that he wasn't, it was a great offense. He's not like he's not qualified, but again, these are both 2 first-time head coaches. One coached for 2 years and the other one, I don't have a good answer on that one. But again, it's the Colts hiring. Any team hiring the AFC South, that always just seems like a train wreck process. So I have no idea what to think of it. Truly, we'll see what happens with that. And to your third question, as far as Wilkes and Flores,
Yeah.
deserving of to be a coach, absolutely. I don't think that's even in question at this point. Will they? I know everybody else is saying yes because I think that's what we should say. I think we want to believe that that makes sense because we know they are deserving. Eric Bieniemy is also deserving. Flores is deserving this coaching cycle, but Gannon ended up getting the Arizona job, even though Flores was a second interview guy and he chose Minnesota over them. Yeah, he deserves it. Will he get it? He has one bad year in Minnesota, and all of a sudden he's going to be at the bottom of the pile, no different than Byron Leftwich. And that's a 3 or 4 year process just to get back to where he is, now in those conversations for a head coach position. I'm not as confident because, like Jeremy said, that old white money ain't trying to come off it. So, hey, man, that's kind of unfortunate. That's kind of where I am
I'll
right
say
now.
it for all y'all because I believe it. I mean, I don't understand how there's only what? Let's see. We got D'Amico Ryans. We've got Mike Tomlin. Ron Rivera. And I'm just saying non-Caucasian. Ron Rivera. Who's the other one? Didn't they say Mike McDaniels is mixed?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's about it in the NFL, right?
You don't have a lot of them, that's for sure.
But at the end of the day, yeah, I don't have that confidence. I would love to believe it's true. But do I actually believe that? No. Because then there will be somebody that pops up this year that's going to have a great season and they're going to skyrocket to the top of that list like we've seen every year, like clockwork. And it's going to push those guys down. So until the NFL shows me that they have the capacity and the capability to actually give these guys fair shakes and to truly hire them, I don't believe that. Yeah, show me.
All right, Candy, you have the last word on this.
So was I surprised that all of the Philadelphia Eagles? Yes, I was surprised. Again, like everybody's been saying, though, it's going to be interesting to see what team they have and how much success they have next year. Rebuilding with all the free agents, with all the coaching changes. We've all said that coaching changes make a difference with your offense and your defense. And the continuity and learning new plays and learning new colors, learning, to gel with the coach. Even some of your greats don't gel with certain coaches and have off years. I think it'll be really interesting. I think it'll be difficult for them. As for Flores and Wilkes, I'd like to say yes. I want to see them because I think that, they're good coaches. But will we see? I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not so sure either, Travis. To be honest with you, the NFL, as far as a lot of coaches and owners go, it's unfortunately it's been a white man's, and I don't mean to say that derogatory at all, but it's just the proven, what they've done in the past. And did they go to the right teams that'll help catapult them or not? I don't know.
Well, let me bring a couple of other things. When you talk about the mixture that you have here, you have 3 young guys, including 1 African American, going to a team which is on their 3rd straight African American. And then you have 2 veterans in Frank Reich and Sean Payton. And now, obviously, when you talk about veterans, Jim Caldwell got recently hired with Tom Capers to show a great deal of veteranship on that Carolina team. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I do believe that Wilkes and Flores will re-land again. I really do, but we'll see how it all plays out. So with that said, I do want to go over to parting shots, and Mel lead off.
And, here we go, another coaching cycle, and Eric Bieniemy, appears to be without a job, not just without a head coaching job, but he appears to be without a job. His contract is up in Kansas City, and whether or not he goes somewhere else or not, is to be seen. But yet, he's not a head coach again. Now, the guy's gone to 4 consecutive AFC Championship games, 3 Super Bowls, 1, 2. What else does a guy have to do? All he wants is the same opportunity that was given to the guy that got the Denver job. Give him a chance to fail or succeed. Even if he fails, at least he got the opportunity. I mean, the guy in Denver was nowhere near, he wasn't prepared at all. And he got fired. He didn't last the whole season and got fired. That's all he wants. That's all most African Americans have ever wanted. It's just an opportunity to fail or succeed. Give the guy an opportunity to fail or succeed. I mean, you got these other guys who I've never heard of. These two guys from Philadelphia I've never heard of, and they both get coaching jobs immediately after the Super Bowl. They got head coaching jobs immediately. Like the teams are waiting for these guys to finish the season, and these are going to be our guys. But Eric Bieniemy, birds are chirping. You can hear birds chirping. It's just crickets. Nothing. I don't understand it. Whatever it is, and again, like I said, I don't understand it. Just give him the opportunity to fail or succeed. Everybody's trying to get the next wonder kid, whether it's Shanahan or whether it's a McVay. There may not be another wonder kid. I mean, look at Andy Reid. I mean, he doesn't look like McVay. He doesn't look like Shanahan. Guy likes hamburgers or cheeseburgers or whatever, and you can see he likes eating a lot of cheeseburgers. But he's a genius, and Eric Bieniemy's been around this guy for a long time. You would think that maybe some of these things might have rubbed off on him, and he might be a good candidate for one of these jobs. I mean, I can't say that all the jobs would have been perfect for him, but for him, but there was at least one job out there that I believe that he would have been good for. And it's disappointing to see him in particular, like Travis was saying. I mean, you're one season away from all of a sudden you're not even on the list anymore, like Byron Leftwich. He gets fired as an offensive coordinator. Now it's going to take him a long time to get back up to the point where he's being considered for a head coaching job. And Travis makes a good point too, and I think Candy does as well. The opportunity, I said that Flores might get another opportunity, but you just look at it. I mean, okay, 5, 6, 7 spots show up every year. You might, maybe there's one season where you might get 8. And you just look at the last coaching cycles, how many African Americans have filled those slots. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. The owners are reserving spots for people that look like them. And that's the head coach now. They used to do it with the quarterback position. Quarterback has changed a little bit. I think if you look at the Super Bowl, the last 2 quarterbacks that are in the Super Bowl, you look at it, they're both African Americans. One of them's highly mobile. The other one's pretty mobile too. You say, hey, I need to get one of those now. What is Baltimore going to do with their quarterback? I mean, Philadelphia gave them the blueprint. I mean, I think they have the blueprint. They'd like to run the football too. I think if Lamar really works hard and becomes a better passer of the football, the sky's the limit for him. Unfortunately, he was hurt this past season, so we didn't get an opportunity to see a lot of him. But Baltimore's got a big decision to make, and they can't just let Lamar Jackson get out of there, because the other thing that bothers me is the lack of patience that these owners show with quarterbacks. They're talking about should Chicago trade Justin Fields? Why?
Right. Yeah, that's.
I mean, I've watched this kid since high school. He can play football. That's not a problem. Maybe the problem is the people that you've surrounded him with and the people that you've had coaching him. Maybe that's the problem. He's not the problem. I've watched him at Ohio State. He can spin it. The guy can spin it with the best of them. Put some pieces around him. I mean, he can't do it by himself. Put some pieces around him and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points. All right, Jeremy, go ahead.
Well, it's funny you bring up that name in particular, because I heard Herm Edwards say something and it makes sense. He goes, he's had 15 interviews and hasn't gotten a single job yet. Maybe he is not giving the right answers and those owners all talk to each other. If he's not giving the right answers in those interviews, or he's interviewing poorly, because you notice he very rarely ever gets a second interview. Second interview means you're like in the top 3 for the job, correct?
Well, they're thinking about you.
So there's something to what he's trying to say. He goes, I've never done an interview without even being considered for a second interview. He goes, it's weird that he gets an interview and doesn't get a second one.
Well, after 15, he should be able to figure it out, don't you think? I mean,
You would think, but evidently he doesn't.
Andy would say, "Hey, what happened?" Maybe they ask, boom, boom, boom. I mean, he should be able to figure that out.
He need better people.
There's something. It's something more than that. I mean, yeah, okay, a guy blows you away in the interview. That doesn't mean he can coach. We've seen that, obviously. What they said Nathaniel Hackett, they blew him away in the interview. And the guy didn't last the whole season.
That guy's great at PowerPoint.
Well, let me just say this about Herman Edwards, okay? And now you guys really left me with a wide open here. This guy knows nothing about the history of the National Football League. I am taking this shot because my colleagues here have set me up for this one. Okay, Chuck Hughes, Herman Edwards was the only. What's that?
He should have known that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I was very disappointed.
Herman Edwards, I play to win the game, but I don't know about the game. I mean, my goodness, you didn't know that Chuck Hughes died. You're 60-some years old, and you didn't know Chuck Hughes passed away on the field. As Gomer Pyle would say, shame, shame, shame.
How many years did he say he was involved with the league? And I was doing the math. I was doing the math in my head. Hey, he should know. Well, how many years did he say?
Let me tell you something else. Say what you want, but Herman Edwards, after that gaffe, lost his credibility with me for
he's older than 60.
Well, he's in his late 60s, I believe, like 67, 68, and he bombed over at Arizona State. But the bottom line is this, okay? Herman Edwards thought in all his time in the NFL that nobody died on the field. And as I'm going to say, shame, shame, shame in the eyes of Gomer Pyle, who died in Honolulu, Hawaii, because I think that, to me, Herman Edwards' brain is like mashed potatoes and gravy. I can't believe you went out there and gaffed on that one. You know what? Let me tell you, the only thing that Herman Edwards is really even known for, really, is that fumble that he had for a touchdown and his rant that we play to win the game. But apparently, he hadn't won enough of them to get consideration, and he doesn't know the history of the game. So that's what I have to say about that guy.
And not a lot of people know that outside of probably Detroit and Chicago, because those are the teams that were involved.
Oh, please, give me a break. You mean to tell me a guy in his late 60s doesn't even know? I mean, I understand that it's probably
he didn't get to the league till like 1977 or something like that. So I mean,
listen,
trust me, I'm not giving him a pass. Don't
good job, because I'll hammer this guy.
Yeah, I'm not giving him a pass.
I'm coming off a funeral here out in Wisconsin, okay, racing or whatever, but I'm not racining to Herman Edwards' defense.
But there wasn't ESPN back then, and there wasn't a worldwide sports leader. There was no internet. There wasn't Twitter.
Well, there was encyclopedias. You mean to tell me this clown
encyclopedias were written once every 10 years or whatever,
It may or may not have been front page news at the time.
Okay, Herman Edwards was only known for a cotton pick and fumble is all he is, and he ran for a touchdown and all the rigmarole here that he.
I'm not cutting him any slack, but I'm giving him a little bit. I'm just saying. There was no worldwide leader in sports back then. There was no internet.
Well, maybe not, but we all know Chuck Hughes died, and this clown here didn't even know about it. So,
but look, where are we all from, though?
Oh, I get it. I'm not debating with you on that. All I know is Herman.
Did Travis know about it?
I'm not going to lie. I'm a football historian, and I didn't know that.
He didn't know.
No. I knew it when I read it after the fact, but my point is, until I read it, I'm going to be clear with you. I did not know that.
How old are you, Travis?
38, and I live in Florida.
Then you get a pass because you're 38, and this knucklehead here is in his 60s. Okay, so at least you have the decency to read up on it. This guy makes a complete imbecile on national TV.
We had Sports Center back then, man.
Listen, I can tell you when I was watching, first time I ever watched Sports Center was up at Michigan State with some friends staying in their dorm room. I used to watch it 9 million times and thought Sports Center was the best thing since sliced bread. But I'm not giving Herman Edwards any darn slack, whether there was a internet or not. I don't care. You mean to tell me there isn't internet now that clown couldn't have researched it? Really? But no, let's go out there. Nothing against the kid here, Damar Hamlin here. Okay, I understand that. Hey, sympathy even came from my end. It only came from my end, and then only you find out most of this civilized world didn't even know who Chuck Hughes was. And I was there to see the stupid thing over at that game with George Eichhorn. So you know what, Mel? You can give this clown a pass all you want. I grew up in an age where
not much, but that much though.
All right. I grew up in an era where Oopsie and Bozo were the famous clowns back then, and I used to watch things in the Shrine Circus. But I'm going to tell you about one thing about Herman Edwards. He is Oopsie and Bozo all combined into one.
Well, I mean, he wasn't the only one. I mean, none of them knew about it.
Come on, man. The guy's in his 60s. You mean to tell me
the sports leader didn't know about it?
Huh?
The worldwide sports leader didn't know.
Yeah,
about
I know. Yeah, you know what, Mel? I can't wait till we go to the Big Chicken out in Atlanta there, and we talk about Chuck Hughes, okay? Because I'm telling you, now I haven't had no energy all day, but we bring up Chuck Hughes. I'm a different animal now, getting ready to go to the Daytona 500, baby. But still, I haven't had
off the Big Chicken.
Last couple of days. But still,
Right,
ESPN didn't have the internet. I guarantee everybody knows about Chuck Hughes now because everybody that didn't know about it looked like a you-know-what to a you-know-what.
Yeah. That's
right. They know about him now. There's no question about it.
That's not even my parting shot. But, man, you bring up Herman Edwards. We played to win the game.
That wasn't your parting shot? Oh, man.
The problem with Herman Edwards is...
There's more, Travis.
So here's the deal. Okay, when I get on a roll here, we play to win the game. But my problem is I don't know the game.
Oh, man.
No, wait. He reminds me of that guy that used to do the infomercial. But wait, there's more.
That wasn't even my parting shot. But you bring up Herman Edwards here. Come on, people.
I brought that up because I think it's a valid point to an extent. He's never had a second interview.
Well, good.
I mean, I never heard that, but I mean but again, like I said, if you've had 15, you have to know what you did wrong. You have to. I mean, somebody's got to sit down and ask you.
Right, you have to have people. Somebody's got to tell you.
I mean, like Andy, he's been through this. He's been through this a few times. Heck, you can even go to the Hunts and talk to them or the general manager and say, hey, this is how they interview. These are the questions they ask. Where did I go wrong? At some point in time, you want to be prepared. So I'm just not buying that. I'm just not buying.
Yeah, but even Andy himself has come out to the league early in this season, in the last offseason, and said, "Hey, he deserves a shot. He needs to be a head coach."
They don't like him. That's the bottom line.
Maybe
it's so odd.
Maybe it's not what he's saying in the interviews, but maybe it's predetermined.
I mean, Vic Fangio got a head coaching job.
Well, it's just weird though. The same coaching tree that produced Doug Peterson, Harbaugh, Sean McDermott, You got those. I mean, you got some hits, but you have some misses with Nagy and a few other guys. But at the end of the day, you have some serious, non-play calling head coaches that were hired, and you wouldn't hire the guy who we confirmed is calling plays, which is contrary to everything that we've seen with the rest of the hires. That it's always got to be the new hot young thing that's calling plays. Well, cool. This is the hottest thing, to Mel's point earlier, right here. Seems to be pretty obvious.
Let me make a confession, and I'm not at church making them, but I can make one on live here. Okay, the only word I know in Spanish is when I dated a Puerto Rican was El Stupido, and I was referred to that a lot of times by this person, not that she was any good either. So you know what? When it comes to NFL history, Herman Edwards is El Stupido. That's all I got to say about that. All right. I know I got Travis never seeing me in this state here, but when you bring up a guy that doesn't know the history of the game, every now and then I don't mind lighting it up when I have to. They don't call me the Motor City Motor City Mad Mouth, fresh off a trip to the Midwest with the Cheeseheads. All right, Travis, with that said, I don't think I've got it in my system because I have my real parting shot, but you all set me off on Herman Edwards. All right, Travis.
Yeah. After Mel just threw that grenade in the room and closed the door, I got to follow that one up. All right, man. We got you worked up, Scott. All right. So my parting shot is we got to fire all the writers of the NFL script. all they apparently for the Super Bowl they just hired all the writers from Game of Thrones, and that's just how they wanted to end the Super Bowl. So I wasn't very much a fan of that piece. That the rest of that game was the first 7 seasons of Game of Thrones, and that last 2 minutes was season 8. They just took a dump in the bathroom and just didn't flush it. That hurt my heart to see that game end in that way. I don't know what resolution there truly is to it. And again, I know everybody's going to say, don't harp on the penalty, don't harp on the end of the game. Again, I just want to see the players on the field be the main thing talked about it at the end of the game. I don't think that's too high of a bar. But nevertheless, I wanted to see the game won or lost on the field of play and not on something that was even remotely controversial. And I think we've had 2 in a row that's been the case on the last 2 championships. Again, I just want to see something where it's, hey, I wanted to see the opportunity for that last person to get the ball and see what happens. Again, like that Buffalo Bills, Kansas City was the AFC Championship a few years back. Like that's what I wanted to see the last team get the ball and have an opportunity to give me a epic Super Bowl ending. And at the end of the day, yeah, the player admitted that he did it because by the rule of the law he did. But I feel like we were robbed of that. And that stinks. And I blame the writers of this NFL script if you believe that conspiracy. But it is what it is. And yeah, that's mine.
All right, Candy.
My parting shot goes to my least favorite team in the NFC North, the Chicago Bears. On Wednesday, they purchased a property in Arlington Heights, a 326-acre property for $197.2 million. The team cautioned, however, that the plan doesn't mean that there are plans to build a dome stadium. There is still a tremendous amount of due diligence work to be done to determine if constructing an enclosed state-of-the-art stadium and multi-purpose entertainment district is feasible. Come on, why are you buying property for $197.2 million if you haven't already done all of that research? Because let's face it, the team on the field needs that money more than a stadium. And if they do that, that'll leave Lambeau Field as the only undomed stadium in the NFC North.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of guys won't cry about that, won't shed a tear about that. I know players won't, because it gets cold.
Justin Fields already said he would love to play in a dome stadium.
Yeah,
that gives Green Bay an advantage though, because then you got to come up and play when you're used to playing in a dome. Then come up and play at Lambeau, because Lambeau's not going to be domed.
Yeah, I've seen games at Soldier Field. It does get cold. I remember that when I went over to Chicago, I made sure that I wore 3 pairs of socks and a pair of hiking boots on the field when I got there.
It's nice.
There's one argument.
And, it's nice for the fans to watch a game and all that. I mean, it's just aesthetically more pleasing, but I would rather play on natural grass. I don't mind playing outside. It's not that long that you're out there. It's only, 3 hours, and they got all kind of modern technology now. Back then, we just had parkas and the little what are those tornado heaters or whatever those things were called, and if you got too close to them, you might catch on fire. But I mean, playing in the cold just depends on how cold it is, though.
Well, and it also takes it away from downtown, and it puts it out in the suburb. And is that something that we want to see? More and more teams have been doing it, but is it something we want to see?
I have to admit, though, I did enjoy watching the Lions at the Silverdome. But that's my opinion.
I mean, Soldier Field has a lot of history.
It does, but there's an argument to be
from
made.
The Coliseum, so I mean, they could move from Soldier Field.
Yeah. Right. Well, you know what? My parting shot is one I actually used on the Sports Exchange, but I thought it was worth using twice. At noon, March 21st, 1949, WTVJ, at that time it was CBS, was on for the first time in Southern Florida. And some of the common sports anchors that actually came out of there were Kerry Ross, who's actually married to Dave Dombrowski, Chris Fox, who I'll see over the weekend up in Daytona, Tony Segreto, Roy Firestone, and Bernie Rosen mentored a lot of those individuals. On Sunday night, Ruthie Polinsky will do the final sports cast ever. She's actually an Ann Arbor native, and she went to school at the University of Michigan. But here's the thing, folks. There will be no local sports cast anymore. Local TV has become obsolete in a major sports market. Sports will only appear and the newscasts when relevant and done by the anchors. Polinsky is the last of the 4 sports anchors remaining. This is one that Jacob Christner should get his hands on because he always talks about mainstream media. But I truly think it stinks because I think what you end up leaving here is you leave out the high schools and a lot of the other sports that don't get the attention that they get. But it just goes to show you what mainstream media has become. And I remember when we had Ted Dawson on last week's edition of the Sports Exchange, myself and George Eichhorn, and Ted told me that out in Boise, Idaho, that they discontinued it there. So, welcome to the new day and age. It really stinks. And I know Ruthie's, I've met her a few times, very talented young lady. She won't have a problem getting a job. But to me, it's just unfortunate about the way media has become, and that local news, which was a staple in our society for many years, is starting to dwindle. And now even local sports are really not even being looked upon otherwise. Candy, why don't you give everybody all the information about how to watch us, see us, and all that, and then we're going to let everybody give us their ID information.
Travis, did you have something to say? You look like you have something to say about his parting shot.
I like it. It stinks that the erosion of what the local media as far as how they cover sports, but it also leaves open a lot of opportunity as far as individuals picking up that mantle, filling that void, and filling the voids within different podcasts, different YouTube stations, filling their, doing their own brand in the small media to start covering those high school sports, those niche sports and things of that nature. And we've seen a lot of that popping up over the internet recently. So, you have this one organization who are now just covering this school's football games, and they're just posting all their TikToks and things of that nature. And it really does think it just seems that it's just going from television to internet to YouTube to all the different platforms and things of that nature. And it does stink, but it also does leave open a boatload of opportunity for those who are willing to just maneuver just a little bit and just change it up how they thought it was going to look. And this thing might not even be the way that we're doing it right now. If you go 10 years into the future, you may be on Schmoosh site or whatever, whatever the new app is, having this conversation, and I'm here for it, man.
All right. Well, you may be here for it, but I got my first job in this industry when in 1979, I worked with Dick Vitale he was the show in front of us at the Sports Exchange. And to me, being the producer, I think Mel would know Ron Cameron Sports Talk out there. You remember that one, right, Mel? Probably. But, it was interesting. Ron Cameron. I work for ABC Radio. So, the reality of the situation, you're right, Travis. Who knows what's going to be 5-10 years from now anyways. But right now, I just hate to see the local news anchors being waited out. I really do. I think it stinks. You can't even pay 60 seconds to 2 minutes for something that goes on locally. I'm sorry. I don't get it. Your points are valid. But, tonight's been one of my nights I get to rant, okay? I don't like Herman Edwards, okay, to begin with. And now I hate what they're doing to Ruthie and all these other people that are losing these opportunities. People, get it live here. This is about to not sick them all the head territory. I can't.
So if you like,
Travis is really being entertained by this. Jeremy.
Nah, you remind me of the man yelling at the clouds. I'm just picturing that meme, man. That's it. He's on it tonight.
See, Jeremy's starting to get a little red after the sleet he had up there. He hadn't seen me like this before, had you, Jeremy?
No, not yet.
No,
Man,
no.
I'll tell you what. Driving through a sleet storm when there hasn't been a plow or a salt truck out, it's stressful.
Well, nothing to compare what I had to do over the holidays.
I know. But I wanted to say, I wonder if your bed's going to start asking you for your frequent flyer miles.
All I know is with a fractured tailbone, I have a pain in the you-know-what, and I won't go ahead and swear on here, but I know a lot of people can go ahead and figure out. All right, Candy, take
You can
us
say
home.
took us.
okay, so if you enjoyed this broadcast, we have many more on our YouTube channel. Please head over to South Florida Tribune YouTube, hit the subscribe button, share our broadcast. If you want to hear the audio version because you're driving the car and you can't watch us, you can hear us on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, anywhere you get your podcasts. If you have show ideas, please email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Go head over to our website. You can see all of our content at www.southfloridatribune.com. If you would like to sponsor or advertise on any of our shows, you can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. Thanks, Scott.
Well done, Candy, as usual. So with that said, if you'll follow me on Twitter at Tribune South Gets It Done, our website's www.southfloridatribune.com, which Candy does an outstanding job with. Our email, like she mentioned, southfloridatribune@gmail.com, and the YouTube. All right, with that said, of course, Inside the Pigskin will going forward will be on a couple times a month until we get loaded up here during the summer and the fall, where we'll be going back to once a week. All right, Travis, you've been a great addition as we later in the part of the season, so go ahead, lead off.
Hey, you can again. I appreciate you guys for having me, and you can find me on Twitter, Trav Lights Bacon, because yes, I am that one vegan who just so happened to love, bacon and pepperoni pieces and stuff. It's weird. I don't know how it works, but hey, don't judge me. You can find me on
I'm gonna.
You're not vegan.
That's a fake butted vegan.
Hey man, we don't ask questions. Hey man, I'm down 33 pounds. Somehow it's working. Hey, that's all I'm going with.
That's because the grease makes all that grass slide through you.
Travis, it's my lucky number, but don't get me started on me.
I got at least another 20 pounds to go. Well, so we doing this thing. In the meantime, trying to stay healthy. But yeah, you can find me on Student of the Game, Mr. Kyle Nash, A7BN Sports. But for the most part, mainly just you can find me through my Twitter if you want to talk some football, or you can find me on Facebook, Travis D. Holmes. I appreciate you guys again.
Well, we appreciate you too. You've been a great addition to the team. All right, Smoking.
You can find me on www.southfloridatribune.com under the Motor City Tribune heading as one of the authors talking about the Detroit Lions, of course. You can also find me on Kneecap Biting with Smoking Jeremy B, which is my podcast, which, much like this one, is every 2 weeks on Wednesday with my NFL subjects. And on every Friday, I will be talking all Lions news with various Lions fans. Then you can find me all over the place. Let's Talk Sports Network is a new network. They're going to have me on to talk about the draft and the free agency coming up for the Lions. So I'm pretty excited. I've been in the demand lately. And any show that is on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, you may see me on it because Scott may just call me in.
Oh, I keep Smoking busy, man. I actually kept him busy that he was actually on an auto racing show. I challenged him to do something else, and he did really good. All right, Mel, go ahead.
Find me on all the social media at Melfar Jr., Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and you find out what we have going on for the youth in Detroit and down here in Atlanta at melfar.org. And Travis, just want to let you know, I'm down 50, and I'm not a vegan. I'm not vegan. I'm down 50.
I'll add meat later.
About 20 more to go. I'm trying to get somewhere where I haven't been since high school, but that's my goal.
I just hit my college weight last week, so hey, it sounds like we're doing it together.
Well, I have some work to do. That's all I'll say. Hopefully, I'll work off some of that over this weekend at the Daytona 500. So I'm not advertising. All I know is I let off a lot of steam when I gave it to Herman Edwards.
Yeah, you lost 2 pounds tonight, sir.
Yeah, I probably did. And you know what? I don't play to win the game. I know the game. All right, Candy, take us home.
I already did.
All right, whatever. Took us home again. Anyways, this completes this edition of Inside the Pigskin. So look for the updates on social media when we'll be doing the next one. But great crew tonight, Candy, Travis, Smoking, Jeremy B, and Mel. Thanks for being here on all of them. And, well, what can I say? I've enjoyed doing this show and looking forward to bringing it back better than ever in our off season as well. So on behalf of Candy Ebling, Travis Holmes, Smoking Jeremy B, Melfar Jr., Scott, the Motor City Madmouth, I hate Herman Edwards tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.
He's such a good guy, though.
Yeah, okay. Everybody with perspective and there's reality. Okay. So, but on behalf, you got me thrown off. I don't care. On behalf of Candy Evelyn, Travis Holmes, Smoking Jeremy B. Melfire Jr., the Scott Morgan Automotive City Man Mouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside the Pigskin. Have a good night, and we'll catch you on another episode soon. God bless everybody.
Spade new to your pets.